Hi, everyone. As usual, I'd like to first of all kind of um, find ourselves on the map, where exactly in the city we are. But we are very central. And I know many of you actually watched my tours of St. Petersburg and this area back in the peaceful times in 2021, well, 2020. Well, we are by the Ostrovsky Square, which is one of the central squares, beautiful squares in the city center. Well, Ostrovsky, I believe, from the point of view of marketing, especially for the Western visitors, it's not really the best name. I guess they really could have done a better job with the naming, but nevertheless, so Ostrovsky was a Russian playwright who indeed, uh, well, left his mark in the city's literary scene, theater scene as well. Well, theater, but I think, well, whenever a foreigner visited that square, they would definitely name it the Catherine Square because in the heart of the square is a monument to Catherine the Great. It just stands out. You can see it from every corner of the square, regardless of the lush green, trees and everything. And this is Catherine the Great towering over all of her favorites, who will half of them also happen to be her boyfriends or her lovers. Others, well, the other half were very good friends, and nearly all of them helped Catherine the Great rise to power, and she wasn't really meant to be there. So, and it kind of has this interesting allegory. So yeah, Catherine's definitely more important. And you see visually she's much taller than everyone else, but they're also seated. But she's kind of standing on them kind of in a way. So in fact, had it not been for those people, Catherine wouldn't be now on the top of the monument. And she probably wouldn't even have made her way to the crowd because she wasn't even supposed to be there. Well, only up until uh, up until her son reached the legal age to rule the country. Well, but this is a long story, and most of you probably know it from my previous tours. But I just wanted to, whenever I have a chance to give you a little more, some more stories, I'm jumping on this, you know that. And this video is made up of several videos. Some of them even I filmed myself. As you see, this is a gloomy St. Petersburg. It looks way worse, way more depressing when it's winter. Well, okay, even worse when it's mid-season, right? But it is what it is. And I always share tons of old photographs, and luckily there are a lot of them. I don't know, maybe that's actually Catherine the Great was always afraid of, coup d'etats and possible plots against her and Ostrovsky Square. Well, at that time, it wasn't called Ostrovsky during her time. It wasn't called so. This was the area where there was just kind of an area, kind of a square there as well, where in fact, um, some prostitutes gathered, which was illegal, but they did. And this will get worse even in the 19th century. And then closer to the 20th century, this would be the area, kind of the hub where also terrorists would be, well, kind of the anti-monarchists would be meeting each other secretly, to pass on secret messages to each other. There were several areas. They were very central, like under the nose of the police. But I guess that was exactly the catch. That's exactly why it worked, because the police couldn't even accept, the idea of terrorists just being able to do their dodgy business just under their nose. And if you can see, so the street right between us and and the people, there are tram tracks. So there used to be a tram that would go along the Nevsky Avenue, not anymore. The building behind Catherine the Great is the State Library, established during her reign, obviously. She is by right considered um, the enlightened, the educated empress. Yeah, so that's for sure. That was the time of Catherine the Great. Right beside Catherine, behind, sorry, Catherine the Great is the Alexandrinsky Theater, which is one of the symbols of St. Petersburg anyway. And yeah, that's the library. Let me know later on if you would be interested in a tour on the library because I have a video of a couple of libraries. I never really had a chance to work on those videos, but who knows? Well, you might be interested in that. Whenever I can, I show you something new. This is the views of Nevsky Avenue. You see there's cobblestone yet. Well, this is the photos taken even before the trams would be laid. The trams would be functioning starting from the very turn of the 20th century. Before that, it would be carriages. These are the photos taken in the 18. Ah, goodness gracious. Well, this is 1900, but mm, well, I believe this was taken a little bit earlier because around 1900 there would already be the trams. So maybe the photograph was taken earlier than that, but then published in the 1900s. Nevertheless, uh, well, also one of the gems in the vicinity of where we're going to be is the Zinga building, and well, this the sewing machine factory Zinga building. This one we visited on my tours, but also I have a video on that. It's not a long one, in fact, because there's not really this much to see. I mean, the it's a business center, and there's not really so much open to public unless you're renting an office there. But I have a video, and I might just combine it with some other areas of the city, and we might head to see the gorgeous Art Nouveau interiors. But today we're heading to this gorgeous Art Nouveau palace, the Yeliseev shop. I mean, well, you just need to see it once and then you will never forget this building. The quintessence, the essence of Art Nouveau with this gigantic window, with metal constructions, with all these amazing and numerous number of engineering innovations and all sorts of novelties that were implemented while this building was constructed. So in 1902, the Yeliseev shop history goes way back and has quite an interesting story, by the way. But first of all, let's talk about the building itself. Gavril Baranovsky was the architect who specialized in Art Nouveau style and well, and also late eclectic style. And he once he built this shop. He also built quite a number of other stores in the country across the empire, including Moscow and some others. And he worked primarily, almost exclusively, for the Yeliseev family, because apart from just the retail stores, the Yeliseev company. Okay, so Dolly is experiencing issues with the video. How about everyone else? Please let me know because I may need to switch to the other room. Could be my connection. I've opened the chat. Let me know. I may probably just need to switch the location, switch the room. Okay, let's do it this way then. Okay, let me go on, and I hope that the connectivity will restore. So I've just got into the better room. Okay, thank you for letting me know, Dorley. I hope it works. I hope it will be fixed as it should be. Video okay, sound went on and okay. Thank you, Holly. Well, this should be okay now. The kids have left, so I don't think we're going to be. The focus is poor. Well, Maryland's going to be fixed now because I'm back to the strong. Well, I'm very close to the rotor itself. Thank you for flagging that to me, Dolly, because The recording otherwise would have been also with, I would say, poor focus. Okay, so Gabriel Bronovsky, I was talking about him exclusively, almost exclusively working for the Yeliseev company, and it's not just retail stores, but it's also their own wine cellars, their own delivery centers, big storages as well. Also, the a lot of commercial spaces they rented and also own in the ports because they supplied goods like continental goods, right? So they imported goods from all around the world. That's eventually what they specialized in. So their goods were very expensive. This was the premium segment store, the very first premium segment store. So Gabriel Brodowski, he was well, he had a good job. He was very lucky, and he didn't really need to work for anyone else. He always had enough job, enough work. Yeah, for sure. Some postcards. Well, this was one of the absolute gems in the city. Obviously, it had to be made. It had to make its way to the postcards at some point, and there are quite a number of old photographs. But I'm just going to be sharing some of them. When this building was constructed, as it was well, when it was being built, there was scaffolding all over, and no one could see peep into the I don't know a hole in scaffolding. It was like all a big secret, like really shrouded in mystery. And but so Yeliseev, they were pioneers in many ways. I'll be also talking about the family itself as the tour goes. They were pioneers in many ways, including the promotion and marketing. They just were this big mystery around the construction, right? They created so much hype that everyone was talking about what is it, right? What it was being built in the very heart, just by the Nevsky Avenue. It had to be something massive, and it was massive, and it is massive. So it was the idea of the Yeliseev brothers for sure. And obviously, there's a lot of symbolism. Well, we have the sculpture of Mercury, who was the god of trade, and he is he has his foot on a sack, right, on something, and it looks like he's helped by the by the putti, right, by the chair. Well, kind of kids. I'm not sure if it's a putti. It looked like it's a kid. Nevertheless, and also there is like abundance. You see also an anchor. So it's kind of this Mercury. He kind of really nailed it. Nailed the sea trade, the navigation, the delivery of goods from around the world to Russia. And I don't know why there is a kid. Maybe it's kind of a child exploitation, child labor exploitation. I have no idea what's going on there. But yeah, definitely. This is kind of to show that Yeliseev brothers definitely nailed. By the way, they have not been accused of any child labor exploitation thing. I'm just a bad joke. Yeah. So they definitely nailed on the sea, and they had a lot of agreements, and they were also exclusive suppliers obviously to the court, so they they were well off, and they were all good to go. Then you see the other guy. There was the other guy, and you see that this guy is holding a ship in his hand, right? But there's also like a big wheel, like a mechanism also at the back. So it's like industry, right? Industry and the smallest ship, which means even shipbuilding. So Yeliseevs there, they had their own, they had their own fleet as well. Small commercial fleet that would be delivering goods from all over the world to St. Petersburg and Moscow and Kiev and other cities. Well, I think now you can see it even better. And from the other side, there are also two more sculptures, which we are going to talk about later on when we see it. But as of now, just hold on a second. I want to make sure. Yeah, it's all good. So for now, we're going to focus on the shop window, which is an artwork for sure. This is just the same thing we saw several years ago, back in the peaceful times. And these are the characters of the Nutcracker Ballet. It was designed by Mikhail Shemyakin. He is, Soviet and Russian artist, avant-garde artist. He is based now in France. He used to live for a long time in the States, like in the 90s, but basically would be kind of living in between the three countries. And he, well, is still very, very, like really fully involved. I'm so sorry with my tea and I forgot it in the other room. So I need to take it with me. And Shivakin would be involved with a lot of collaborations with other Russian artists, living both outside of the country and inside the country. Obviously, he's very much against what's happening nowadays. And uh, a lot of um, ballet performances in the world, Russian ballet, actually, well, especially the Nutcracker and a couple of others, the costumes and the specs were designed by Shemakin. But with regards to St. Petersburg, I'm sure there's one monument that you kind of cannot miss. And cannot forget because it really, really stands out. So Shemakin, as I said, he is the avant-garde artist. This is the monument you probably remember from my tours of the Peter and Paul Fortress. That is the monument to Peter the Great. And this is not the great guy with 6 foot tall, right? Long black hair, right? It's a very, very different kind of a man. And he's not even wearing a wig and looks disproportionate, ugly. Well, that's the vision of Shemakin of Peter the Great. But other than that, it looks abundant, beautiful, and really catches your eye. And the moment you see it, you kind of have an idea where you're heading to. So this is Yeliseev shop. It has always been the food store even during the Soviet times. It functioned during the siege times as well. We will be talking about siege as well. But obviously, when it opened, wow, that was just one of the most expensive and the most expensive store in the city and probably in the empire. So it was a chain. So and now they're still selling pretty much the same things, the imported goods, but obviously with the sanctions, the range changed a lot. But it's still quite impressive because I was really interested to see. I was a bit hesitant whether I actually need to show you this shop because well, I didn't know what to expect. I haven't been there since 2022, but well, the shop is doing pretty much okay with lots of alcohol made in Russia, or well, less European alcohol, less Western goods, a lot of local produce. Which is, I talked to my colleagues and I asked whether the quality, let's say, of well, they used to have amazing bakery. Actually, they still have a bakery, but I thought it kind of got worse because back in the days, well, that's what I'm talking about. They used to bake stuff from the French flour, but now they're baking it from Russian flour. And what my colleagues told me that it's even more delicious. And their rum bubs are just well baba rum baba are just absolutely amazing. I don't know. They were good. I remember they were good. So as of now, maybe it's just wishful thinking. I don't know, but it looks good. It looks good, and it looks way more expensive than it used to. Obviously, I cannot ignore everything that's happening in the world and what Russia is doing. So I'm very much aware of that, but I'm also trying to focus on something that kind of doesn't add to my anxiety. So that's why I'm focusing on the past. I'm focusing on the history because for every now and again, I still keep getting those messages. How dare you do tours of St. Petersburg when, well, Russia is doing what it's doing? Well, how on earth do I need to explain that? I don't bother to explain these things. Like I've grown my thick skin, but in general, so doing these tours, I'm very much aware of what's going on, and that's exactly why I'm doing these tours to focus on something other than the current affairs. Anyway, so this is already the area that is kind of behind the scenes. Well, yes and no. So normally when we drop by, we never really went there because this is a restaurant, kind of a small private area and also small museum. But it's authentic and it's part of the Yeliseev store, just as it is. And many items here are memorial, which means they were here at times of the Yeliseev, so before the revolution, and they are still here. And it is still a store. There is still a restaurant. There is even still a theater. It doesn't belong to the Yeliseev store anymore. And the Yeliseev store is in private hands. It's the brand that was that reopened and has nothing to do with the descendants of the Yeliseevs. So the star of the show is definitely Grigory Yeliseev, who built the empire. But I told you that there are interesting stories about the Yeliseevs and how they became the Yeliseev, how they created this empire, right? Emporium. Uh, The story is very simple. The grandfather of Grigory Yeliseev was just a serf. He served to the Sheremetyevs family, and he managed to grow strawberries in winter. And well, Sheremetyev saw his potential, and they decided to nourish the talent and help the talent and set that serf free. And they also gave him a little bit of the startup money, and he started off just by selling fruit, well, from a fruit, just a small fruit stand basically. And then this is how the business would be growing, and eventually they opened one store, and then they opened more stores. So when it all actually happened under Grigory Yeliseev, and also, well, his father obviously contributed, and they had brothers, so it was like a big family business. And his portrait you see on the stairs, it's a family business, as I said. Also, there are photographs of Grigory Yeliseev and his first wife Maria, which means there was also a second wife, but we'll talk about it a little bit later. Well, they also had a big family. They had a lot of children, and it was very common. Uh, so they became rich. They became influential, really one of the most affluent families in the city. However, however, they still didn't have the same status as the aristocrats did, because the merchants, well, the Yeliseevs came from the poorest, right? So they came from the serfs, and they reached all those heights. Obviously, for aristocrats, they always remained kind of the not good enough, right? And that's what bothered Grigory Yeliseev in the beginning, but later on, something very different started bothering him, and he couldn't bother less about the about the background. Well, there are a lot of photographs of the children, of the brothers, of the family of Yeliseev's brothers, because it's a family business, and the restaurant. So obviously they had their own restaurant, they had a cafe. Well, that store was like a flagship store where they had the store itself, the storages, the restaurants, the theater, and this is the restaurant. It's very small, right? There's also a coffee shop downstairs. It's like part of the store itself, but this is kind of a small restaurant. And back in the good times and before the pandemic, during the summer, all the tables were booked for weeks ahead, mainly by tourists, but also sometimes by locals, because even locals know that even though It's an expensive store and it's located on the Nevsky Avenue. The food there is really good and it's worth the money. That's what people always know. Well, even nowadays, actually, well, from what I know from my colleagues, and I don't think they actually lied or being a bit evasive or anything. Well, I think they are that they actually told the truth. So it's still a very good store. Well, nevertheless, um, I don't know about how booked they are nowadays, but the tables are all reserved. And if you paid enough attention, you actually might have noticed that the tables are served with a very special kind of dishes, with a very special kind of, because it's the set designed by the Imperial Porcelain Factory, designed especially for the Yeliseev store. Huh? I mean, look at the colors, the style, and just, I think it just looks gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. And yes, you can buy it. And a couple of my tourists indeed purchased, well, not the entire set, but a little bit just as a souvenir. I do remember that. You could buy it. I don't know about now, but you could buy it just from the downstairs. And it's just there are about 5 or 6 tables maybe, and that's it. Well, no, even well, four, 4 tables, and this is it. So I guess it's not surprising that it's used to be booked all the time. I'm not surprised at all. So this thing that look like eggs, actually this is the alcohol. This is how alcohol is sold. Probably vodka or something that is designed. The package is designed as a Fabergé egg. Well, I guess it's pretty clear why. Still Fabergé eggs and it's still being exploited everywhere, and it's a very good, still a very good trick. There you go. So the while Oleg was there, the restaurant was getting ready for something, and there is one room that I have never been myself. When Oleg was there, he was allowed to film what used to be the study of Grigory Yeliseev. And it used to have this, well, the similar, wallpapers. Well, it's like upholstery, like silk on the walls, but it's the same desk. It's the same furniture, well, restored, I suppose. Um, and it's normal. It serves as a small museum, but usually that room is open. So I have no idea what Oleg had to do for them to open the room, or maybe they were just bored. I have no idea, but I've never been there myself. So it was really nice to see, though it was very, very short visit. And you can access, sorry, and you can access the store. You can access the study of Grigory Yeliseev from from the same level over there. And we're going downstairs past the same staircase. I just love this furniture. I'm not sure whether it's always stood in the same place, but from what we were told back in the days, that the shops itself, the stalls, all the shelves are original, and all the furniture that is the old furniture that is now used is now there in the shop is the one that actually used to be here. Well, who knows? Well, we're back, and I will never forget the variety of marzipan they had on sale, the variety of some exclusive chocolate truffles and handmade chocolate. I will never forget that. Well, their marzipan, they look like works of art. I don't see really marzipan anymore, so I guess it's just way too expensive. But I see a lot of nougat. I see a lot of Turkish delights, and they are probably too sweet, not really for my liking, but it's still, so the way everything is arranged, the way it is all decorated, it still looks lovely. And well, the chocolate, by the way, so all these chocolates are, all those sweets, they are handmade and they are made just downstairs. And we will be going downstairs too because there is something to see there as well. Yeah, well, caviar, mm, fish, smoked fish of all sorts. Yeah, you can also find it in the store. They used to have they used to sell fish alive, like it was there in the aquarium, but I I I don't remember. I haven't seen it this time, so maybe they are not doing it anymore. But I don't think they're not doing it out of the compassion. I think it's just purely economic reasons that they are not uh, doing this anymore. I don't know. And also, I'm sure you can see the pineapple, right? So around this pineapple are tables. So this is like a small coffee shop. You can buy coffee, you can buy croissant, or some baked stuff or some sweets, and you can have a seat there. Obviously, well, Yeliseevs became filthy rich just within almost within one generation. It was, well, an American dream come true. And for everyone, it was a miracle and too mysterious. So everything around Yeliseev's would be always full of speculations, legends of all sorts and rumors. And trust me, Grigory Yeliseev added a lot to that himself with this and another love story that I will be talking about later on. So, but for example, there were rumors as if in the pineapple itself was hidden the endless amount of jewelry that the Yeliseev family had. And well, that they hid it before the revolution, and they were hoping to come back one day and retrieve the gold and jewelry, whatever, diamonds. I have no idea. Well, it's there's also a shop in Moscow. I mean, it closed several years ago, by the way. Like, there's no Yeliseev shop anymore, but there used to be back in the days when I lived in Moscow. I remember I visited the shop, and it was just as gorgeous, different, but just as gorgeous. Anyway, it was Art Nouveau, beautiful, special, and there was no pineapple, but there was a big chandelier, and obviously there were rumors as if the Yeliseevs hid their jewelry in the chandelier. I bet those were the first things that the Bolsheviks scrutinized, and I bet even if they did find something, they never bothered to tell the world about it. Yeah, but obviously after the revolution, everything was confiscated, everything was nationalized, and didn't belong to Yelisei, it just belonged to the people. And here opened just a food store, let's put it like this, which became something more than just a food store during the Second World War times. But we will talk about it. And this is the collection of the teas, old herbal infusions, which are usually, well, they are usually very good. And yes, Yeliseev still sells its own tea blends, like herbal tea blends mostly. They're very good. They used to have amazing tea with lavender and something else. Oh goodness, what is the name for it? Like thyme and lavender. Yeah, we used to have that. Pretty exclusive. I've never tasted this combination before. And I mean, just have a look at this. Look at all this. Yeah, obviously the shop had electricity, had elevators, they had everything. They had a conditioning system, everything. It was like all top notch, absolutely. And well, it's still the same. It's still the same lamps, still the same chandeliers, still the same decoration, but obviously needed a lot of work to make it get back to the way it used to be. So that was the big pineapple, and over there on the very top are the two brothers Yeliseev. So that well, Grigory Yeliseev together with his brother, they managed. Well, it was the big project of these two brothers, the construction of this store. So they're kind of welcoming the visitors from the balcony, just like that. They're just mannequins, you know, no big deal. But and they don't even look like Grigory Yeliseev and his brother, but it's not that relevant. What is relevant is that I told you that there was a big scandal. The thing is that Grigory Yeliseev fell in love with another woman, and that woman was of a much lower status than than him, right? And well, well, he was already a married man, right? Very rich. So first guild merchant, right? So the member of the um the richest people, the biggest businessmen of the country were the first guild members. And he fell in love with just quite an ordinary lady, and they had an affair, like really big affair. And it just he couldn't even control himself. He was madly in love. He was so in love that that he told his wife that he asked for a divorce, and she wouldn't give a divorce, and she would hope he would come back. She hoped that he would change his mind, but he was unstoppable. And eventually, after several years of this, I would say absolutely devastating a relationship and the scandal, and also living in the scandal, because it was a big smear to the reputation, right, of a married woman whose husband was openly having a relationship with another woman, like behind her back, taking her to events, and they were seen with this woman in the city. Well, because merchants, they didn't even though he was a first guild merchant, he didn't really have to comply with the rules of that the aristocrat had to, and he was exempt of that. And for him, his happiness meant a lot more. So eventually, his wife committed a suicide. She hanged herself on her hair. She must have had really good hair. That's what I think. But yeah, she died a horrible death. And the kids, they never really forgave the father. Never, never. Even after the revolution, when there was nothing else, to cling to, there was no business, there was nothing. They weren't poor because they had a lot of fingers in many pies, and they just had enough money, enough assets outside of the Russian Empire, but obviously they lost a lot, like a lot. Nevertheless, the kids never, never, never forgave the father, and even when they were in emigration, they never reconciled. They never talked to him, and he died alone because his wife passed away. Well, his second wife passed away earlier than him. Well, that was a sad story, a very sad story. His brothers, not only his kids, but also his brothers turned away from him, and eventually they found legal ways to, uh, not to completely, cancel, like, his share, but to kind of cut down his share in the business. Anyway, so what is this restaurant? What is the reason that it's like storage, like a warehouse number five. That was actually it was the storage room. It was the big storage room of the Yeliseev shop, but uh, and normally no one was actually allowed there other than the workers. But well, in the 2000s, they decided to open a restaurant there as well. It's like a small, well, it's no, okay. Let's put it like this: the restaurant is upstairs. Here, it's more like uh, well, it's still a restaurant, but it has like less exclusive dishes, probably a little less expensive, but still not really super affordable. And so all the restaurants, all the three restaurants, well, the coffee shop right on the ground floor, the storage number five, and also the restaurant, they all like have very different menu, and it's the menu, the assortment doesn't really overlap. So in the ground floor, they focus on the coffee and tea and desserts. Here it's like more like homemade food, um, some alcohol, and upstairs is like I would say high kitchen, like big deal. Anyway, also, so it's still a museum. It's a store, but it's also a museum. So here on this old, authentic furniture from the store, they see well, you see the old coffee bean dispenser machine and also the grinders. This so I think it still works the same way. If you want, well, if you want to buy coffee, like from the store, you have it sold in beans, but you don't really need to have a grinder. You can just ask them to grind it. But back in the days, well, people, well, it was the first time when you could buy coffee beans and they could grind it for you, and then you could make coffee for yourself. So this is kind of a big deal. Well, at least that it looks like a big deal to me. Also, the Yeliseyev store was the first one to have a delivery. They had the staff of couriers, and they could deliver within one day, within a couple of hours, anything, whatever they had on sale in the store, they could deliver to your place. That's also a big deal, very big deal. And well, it was expensive. Everything was expensive. Right now, they really charge you very little, right, for the delivery. But back in the days, it was like a very a very expensive service, so to speak. So this is the photograph taken already. Probably you can see that in the 1920s. So after the revolution, so the shop it never really closed. It just kind of changed the assortment. And the shop opened, and people, just ordinary people, would be buying stuff from there. I mean, there weren't really a lot of grocery stores in the area, so that, at least that one was convenient. And remember, I told you that there even used to be a theater. Well, there is a theater, but officially it's not really a part of the building. It's the comedy theater, but it's you. Well, I mean, now it doesn't. The theater doesn't belong to the same entity as the Yellow Stage Store. It has like it's a state owned, state funded theater, the comedy theater, but it used to be part of the Yellow Stage shop. They used to have a big concert hall and did a lot of performers, a lot of uh, concerts took place there. And just look at the interiors. I mean, just look at that. These are the old photographs. I know. I wish we had them in color. It's like 1900s. I don't know the exact year. Well, not long before the revolution, obviously. And uh, also, this was the venue you could rent for your events, just like that. And they had their own staff, their own event managers, they had their own showrunners, and everything would be like a turnkey for you. So they were the first ones. So they were pioneers of so many things: marketing, delivery, also the services they provided to people. So they just definitely revolutionized the market in general and the business field. So now we are standing on the small Sadova street, like the small garden street. It's a walking street, it's a pedestrian street in the city, and it has two other monuments, so goddesses. So the goddess of the patron of arts, that was the patron of arts. The other one from the right hand side was the patron of sciences, because obviously all that, well, the Yeliseev brothers studied in Europe. They were very fluent in several languages. They were really, really amazingly educated. Well, but it's not all, right? I promise to tell you more about the Second World War times. And Well, I think these two well, the this cat is absolutely inseparable from that story. So his name is Timofey, but actually everyone calls him Yelisei because of the Yeliseev shop. Well, Yeliseev is the last name, but Yelisei is also a first name in Russia. And this is a symbol to thousands of cats that were brought to Leningrad during the Second World War time to help fight mice and rats, which uh, the scarce food supplies during the siege times, because during the siege times, as you know, no supplies were provided at all. Except for the for ones that were delivered by the road of life, in a guy under the guise of well, it's not even under the guise. It's just, well, we spoke about it on my tours on the siege of Leningrad. So the city had no supply, and every drop, of water, every breadcrumb counted. So and the cats were there to just not to let the rats eat the supplies. That just was it. So, and that cat is, well, Yelisei or Timofey. It should be Timofey, but Yelisei is a symbol of the city. And just someone at some point, I have no idea when exactly it happened. Uh, that someone just decided to put another cat to keep Timofey slash Yelisei company, and her name is Vasilisa. It's not really an official name. Officially, the monument has no name, but it's Vasilisa, and she's on friendly terms with Yelisei or Timofey or whatever you call him, and they are both like symbols of the small Sadovaya street. Well, cats are indeed a big symbol in St. Petersburg. I'm not really going into many details now because we need to wrap it up shortly and also have a Q&A. But Yeliseev store during the siege times it never closed even during the siege times, and it remained a food store. But during the Soviet times, during the Second World War times, with all this, well, uh, big problem with the supplies to the city. There was not enough food. People died from hunger. People died from um, cold as well. So food was very scarce, and people had to buy food, but they also only could buy a small number or a small amount of food, depending on how useful they were for the city. If they were workers, if they helped made, ammunition or anything, they would be given a bit more. If they were just teachers, if they were just, I don't know, uh, just clerks, they would be getting a lot less. So you kind of have an idea. But there was a scandal that in the Yeliseev shop, which from the main entrance from the main entrance was just the food store where people could buy bread made from paper, uh, uh, wheat flour dust, and God knows what else. But from the left, from the back door, so to speak, the people with connections, uh, the Bolsheviks, right, the party members, they could be given a little extra, some more food, even pastry. Yeah. Like this is known for a fact, not really speculation anymore. And there was a big scandal in Russia about that. Well, there was no scandal about it during the times because people were just too afraid, but it became it surfaced eventually. Okay, I think this is where we are going to wrap this up. I am turning on the chat. Sorry for the issues with the connectivity in the beginning. So thank you so much, Dolly, for flagging this, and hopefully it's all been fixed. Otherwise, you probably would have told me. Um, yeah, and I hope that the focus is good and you were able to see everything. Let me know if you have any questions. The chat is on. And in the meantime, I am going to once again share with you the links. So we have two more tours tonight. So in 1 hour from now, I'm taking you for the second walk on the Rubenstein Street, right? The bar hop street, the bar hopping street. But it's not only about bars. There's a lot more to talk about, interesting and unexpected connections, um, history, um, and many unexpected things. And hopefully today we have time also uh, for a visit to a museum, to a communal apartment, which now serves as a museum to Maria. You will definitely find this name familiar, Sergei Dovlatov, who was a Russian dissident who spoke Estonian. He lived in Estonia and eventually immigrated to the States and became famous as a Russian writer, but already outside of the country. Yeah. Okay, so I've shared all the links for tonight in the beginning, but I'll just say it again. I'm glad you're still doing tours in St. Petersburg. I love that shop, so beautiful. Thank you, Holly. Thank you. Yeah, Dora, of course. See you later, dear. It's fine. So what else? Other architecture and decorations, Art Deco? No, actually, it's Art Nouveau. It's a little too early for Art Deco. Art Deco is 1920s, right? Well, after the First World War, kind of, right? And before the Great Depression, like in a full sense of the word. So it's like fully fledged Art Nouveau, at least in the Russian timeline, because in Russia we were always a little bit behind, like about a decade behind architecturally. So it's Art Nouveau, like pretty much. You could see all these smooth lines, a lot of flowers, the small tiles, which are very typical elements of the Art Nouveau in Russia. So it is honorable. And then also after another 1 hour break, after the bar street tour, I'm taking you to another Romanov palace, the Anichkov Palace, which is kind of a quiet family nest. It used to be a quiet family nest for the newlyweds. Nicholas II and his wife Alexandra, as well as his parents, and also many other things. And for tomorrow, please don't forget about the very special tour of Grisha and me. So I'm not gonna be telling you everything now, but it's going to be interesting. I'm not exactly sure if it's going to be the best way to do it, but so far it's what I've come to. And yeah, so Risha will be talking about the places he likes, and some stories. I will be sharing also history because obviously I'm taking you not well to the places. It was kind of we agreed with him that these will be places with history, and those will be places actually I've never taken you before in Tbilisi. Trust me, there are still a bunch of places I haven't taken you to. It's gonna be some of those places, and Rick's going to be with me on the tour as well. And it's going to be pre-recorded because there's just no way we could do it on a live stream mode. And then I think I'm losing my voice, but hopefully not my mind. So if I get to choose, I'd rather lose my voice than mind. However, it may not really work with the tours, but we'll see. And also after that, tomorrow I will be finishing with the Viceroy Palace in Tbilisi, and then Armenian Quarter, the continuation of the tour of the least visited least known and most isolated, kind of inaccessible areas of the old city of Jerusalem, which only occupies even less than 50% of the entire area of the old city. It's quite fascinating. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Um, and please don't let yourself be bothered. Well, Maria is saying thank you so much, and please don't let yourself be bothered by some people's pettiness. That's, well, what you do does matter. Yeah, well, thank you, Holly. Thank you, Joanne. Thank you, Maria. I mean, I'm okay with that. It's also partially my responsibility what is going on, but it's also my responsibility to remember the past, right? And well, appreciate the legacy. Well, the good legacy, I mean. And anyway, the history of the modern empires, the history of, I mean, so many countries. Well, they are there where they are. Well, and we know the history, we just embrace it, we just, yeah, we know it, we acknowledge that, so I'm acknowledge what's happening. But for me it's kind of a way also to just for a moment, right, let myself in the hands of oblivion and just share some history and memories with you. So thank you so much everyone for joining this tour. Thank you. Oh, sorry for the tech issues. And well, thank you for just following me wherever I take you. It's really lovely. I really appreciate that. Thank you for everything. And I have shared here all the links. You can find the recordings of the previous weekend tours still on my YouTube, including the tours about the history of prostitution. That was the 14th February, well, Valentine's Day special tour from me. I was in this, you know, interesting mood. And well, I'm hoping to see you in 1 hour from now in St. Petersburg for a bar hop experience, kind of, in a way. Uh, Thank you, Holly. Thank you so much. Marilyn is saying, thank you. We're here because we enjoy and learn from your tours. I used to think that there was nothing more than Russia, but I've learned there was lovely areas. Thank you, Marilyn. Thank you so much. I used to get a lot of these messages back in the days. This is for sure. Many people did. Uh, were surprised to know certain things about Russia, right? And I was so happy. Well, so fun. I would think to myself, well, yeah, you see, Russia is not really the, well, I used to think Russia was not really the Soviet Union the way people used to think. But then, you know, then things kind of changed. Anyway, thank you for everything. Thank you for your interest in my tours. Thank you for your kind words and thank you for your support. You can either support me by sending me a PayPal donation, you could buy me a coffee, and thank you for just being here for me. I will see you in less than 1 hour in St. Petersburg, virtually though. Bye bye. Thanks so much. And this has been recorded, so I will be sharing the recording around these days.